Welcome everyone to this video on coaching. My name's Adrian Priddle and I'm a facilitator of training courses for a wide variety of clients across the energy, financial and professional service sector. Today I'm joined by Kaye Bateman.
Hi, I'm Kaye Bateman. I'm an associate certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. So coaching is something I'm really passionate about as a way of developing people over the long term. But what I love about what we're doing here today is we're simplifying coaching, therefore making it something that managers can use in their toolkit day to day to develop their people as well.
Thanks, Kaye. Really great to have you on this video. What we're going to do, as Kaye says there, is we're going to look at a particular tool that we think managers find really useful in structuring their coaching conversations and helping them to understand where to go. That tool is the GROW model from Sir John Whitmore. If you want to know more about it, there's a brilliant book called Coaching for Performance by Sir John Whitmore, where you can deep dive into this technique a bit more. But what we're going to do is give you a demonstration based on a real life situation of the GROW model at work. And that real life situation is for me in my business, and Kaye is going to be my coach and to talk me through this and to help support me with where I might go. So in a second, I'll be handing over to Kaye, and from then onwards, she'll be giving you a demonstration of that model. Okay, Kaye, over to you.
So, Adrian, what is it you're wanting to focus on today?
So the key thing that I'm finding a bit of a challenge at the moment is I'm going to give you a metaphor of spinning plates. I have lots of things on, different projects, proposals, different areas to manage going through. And I am finding that maybe because of prioritization, managing time, those sort of things, that's getting difficult. And I absolutely hate that feeling of letting anyone down. So I really want to get at this before it feels like a weight on me.
Okay. When you say you want to get at this, where do you want to get to?
Well, I don't think it's a sort of situation in business where, I don't expect it to completely go away. I want to be busy. I want things going on a lot. But I don't want to have that feeling that I'm too close to maybe forgetting something, maybe not getting something in on time, making somebody feel like I've let them down. So where I want to get to is maybe have some safeguards that help me to do that. Maybe have some ways of red flagging when I'm in trouble, warning signs, those sort of things that something might happen. I suppose that's the bit that I'm worried about at the moment, that if I'm purely relying on my own capabilities and memories and a to-do list, I do a to-do list, then that still feels a little bit fragile when it's under pressure. So I think I want some safeguards, Kaye. Okay.
And how will you know those safeguards are what you've got enough safeguards?
Oh, well, firstly, there won't be too many of them. So I probably need one or two good ones rather than lots, because I know my style well enough to know that if I have lots, I probably won't do many of them. Or I won't commit to them. So I'm better to have a focused commitment than I am to have lots of things to do. So I'm looking for one or two ideas. How will I know they've succeeded? That sense of comfort that when I look at my to-do list, I know that everything on there has got a time or place when it's going to be done.
Okay. So, given that's where you want to get to, where are you at the moment?
At the moment, I have times when I look at my to-do list and I have three things that worry me. One is I suddenly remember something that needs to be done that isn't on it. And that scares me a lot, because then you think, well, what else have I missed? I have times where I look and think, oh, I still haven't done that. That could be procrastination. Generally, it's not, but it could be. And then finally, just that slight sense of being overwhelmed when it's really long. So those are the three things. And I think the overwhelmed bit would go away if I have some safeguarding of the other two, because that feels more like an emotional response to, can I be sure this list is right? Can I be sure I've got it under control?
Okay. And what's the impact on you of being in that situation?
The impact tends to be quite tangible. It tends to be that I work at the weekend or I work at time when I would prefer to be with my family. That doesn't happen too much. And some might well say that that's part of running a business. So get on with it. I'd like to have that under as much control as I can. But the tangible impact is when I end up in the office on a Saturday, on a Sunday, making sure I've got things done, because I can see in the coming week I won't have the time.
Okay. So we're looking for safeguards to help keep those two areas under control and to mean that you're not having to work at times that you don't want to.
Yeah, and I think when I gave you those two areas, it's worth noting the first one's more scary to me than the second one.
Okay.
Because when something's not on the list, that's going back to my earlier about not letting people down. If you miss something on the list, then that's quite a serious risk that's going to happen. Whereas if it's on the list, at least then I can do an evening or a Saturday or something to make sure I get it done, because I know it's there. Whereas if it's not on the list and I've made an error, then that has quite a big possibility for me of letting people down, letting my clients down, but also letting my colleagues down who work with me. So that's important to me.
So is that a good area to focus on?
I think that would be the really big one.
Oh.
The other is probably a bit of good time management on my part, and I probably know what I ought to do about those sort of things.
Okay. So what options have you already thought of what you can do to make sure that list is complete?
What I do quite a lot with meetings, calls, things is I'm one of these people with little notebooks. So I've how many notebooks I've filled over the years, I've no idea. But I tend to write things down a lot in those. What I have noticed I might be doing more of nowadays, and I don't really know why this is having those meetings, writing things down, and those points not making their way to a master to-do list as such. So what I have started doing is flicking back through the notebook at the end of the week to see what I've put down as actions and what I therefore need to have on my to-do list. That has two problems as an option for me. One, it waits till the end of the week, which isn't the greatest idea, but so I probably just need to get a better discipline and habit about that. And secondly, I don't always make it as clear in my notes that I've got an action. Yeah, your notes are only as good as you make them at the time. So there's probably some points about what I do currently that could be refined, but I'm also interested if I can come up with or get any additional points.
Okay. So what might those additional points be?
Technology feels like a possibility, and that's something I wouldn't have said 2 years ago. But this, the COVID period has meant that I've used a lot more technology and probably become aware of the fact that actually I can. So, I mean, one thing I do in my personal life is I use the notes function on my phone quite a lot for capturing things I'm likely to forget when I have a conversation. And I think alongside my written notes in my notebook, I could do with a note taking device on my phone, using my phone in some way to grab the actions. I could even go one step further and, get one of these fancy things with a stencil pen pad and actually move away from the notebook entirely and just have a pad. And you know what I mean? Those screens where you can, and just do that. That doesn't feel like I need that at the moment. That feels a little bit like the sledgehammer to crack the nut, but it might be in the longer term a way to go, because I would also save on the massive pile of notebooks I've got. From an eco point of view, that might be a good one. So that's one thing in technology at the moment. Have you got any ideas I could use?
Let's stick with options that you might come up with for now. So okay. Keep thinking, what else might be hiding in there?
I said the things that I think I do in my current process is getting clearer with maybe using a highlighter or some way of making it clear in my meeting notes that there is an action, and then maybe 10 minutes at the end of each day to review the meetings that I've had in my book, and to transfer those to my to-do list as actions to make sure that it's complete. That probably is just polishing up and tightening the ad hoc approach that I have to it currently, rather than a brand new option. But it would definitely, that would give some degree of safeguard if I could get myself into the habit of doing that.
How would you get yourself into that habit?
Something about doing it for 21 days. Is there behavior? I've read something somewhere. I suppose the hard thing is, I'm sure you will recognize this from your client piece as well, that you can have days where you are just meeting, course, call, and you're like just going from one to the next. So making the time can be hard. So I think I would probably need to provoke myself a little bit. Maybe, for example, with a sign, maybe a sign on the wall or above my desk, a reminder. Maybe I do like to go and get a cup of tea after a couple of meetings and things. So one of the things I could do is put it on the door. So as you're walking out, have you collated your actions? That sort of thing. There's a little bit inside of me that's kind of kicking against that. I can feel it now as I'm saying it, going, do you really need that? That feels a little bit childish, but unfortunately the answer might be yes, I do. So yeah, that's probably where I am with those.
Okay. So given that discussion we've had around options, and you've talked about some of the pros and cons of them as you've been thinking them through, which of those do you want to take forwards?
So my brain wants to take forward the adaptations to my current approach. Use a highlighter with clear titling in my meeting notes when I have an action to deliver, and to make sure that it's clearly noted, so that when I come back to review later in the day or at different stages, I can capture that into the to-do list. Because thereby maybe using some provoking notes around the room to do that. And I think that's probably the most immediate action. My heart wants to run down John Lewis and buy a nice fancy tab and have another piece of lovely technology to play with. But that I think I might try the first one, and then move towards the second one. That's in my head that's just kind of popping in. Having said that, is whether I could look at some apps that might help me to capture those sort of to-do things via my phone. I use my phone a lot in work, and whether I could capture some of those things using an app so that's a little bit more friendly than just a simple notes page.
Okay. There were some mights and some whether I coulds in there.
Oh, we've got to have some wiggle room, haven't I?
So what do you want to
You're
do?
going to make me commit to something, aren't you? Yes, fair enough. Very good idea. I am going to take one of the many highlighters I've got, attach it to my notepad, and start to use it to highlight the notes that I want to take. I am then going to check at the end of each day that all the actions that I took from that day have made their way to my to-do list. That shouldn't take me more than 5 minutes, and so therefore it doesn't become a problem, but safeguards and I miss anything. Once I've got that under control and I'm happy doing that, I think I might then look at an app or using the notes page on my phone. Because I think if I say I'm going to do the app and the phone now, that becomes a nice piece of procrastination for me to get to research the app and not do something. Whereas the highlighter, there's a bunch load of them sitting down there on the desk. I'm already using the book and I just need to work with my approach and system a bit better.
Oh. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely do you think you are to do that?
9.
Cool. Is 9 enough?
I think 9's as good as it's going to get. And I suspect many people will probably recognize that when they think for themselves, well, that there's a bit of that I wouldn't give a 10 anyway. And there's a bit of recognizing I've got to this place, so there must be a possibility that I won't do it that well. So I think I'll say a 9 out of 10. And I'd like to try and return to this in about 4 weeks to see if I've managed to do it. And managed to do it consistently.
Ooh. Is that enough for today?
Yeah, I think so. That's a good idea. It's a good idea because I think the danger, I'd like to go away and take that and have a go at that. And then maybe if that doesn't work, look at some technology stuff after that. Because as I say, I think the danger is I procrastinate and enjoy the research and buying of new techie stuff otherwise. And I actually just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything at the moment. That's really helpful, Kaye. It's a nice, simple way of me just refining what I do at the moment.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Kaye. And hopefully watching that, you've seen the different elements of the GROW model. So to be clear with you, at the beginning, Kaye was taking me through the goal. Kaye, maybe I could ask you to give a little thought about what you thought my goal was in that conversation.
So from my perspective, to start with, I was concerned we had a few goals here and we wanted to keep this demonstration relatively swift. So we talked about what some of your goals might be. And then we did a little bit of checking into reality, which is the next phase. And out of that came actually what you wanted was to focus on not missing things on your to-do list.
Yeah, I found that really helpful. So as a coachee, that piece was really helpful to me because there are lots of different threads within this, as there are in many problems we all face or things we're trying to do. There are different ones. So that degree of kind of almost unpicking the threads to say, okay, where is the one that we really need to do something with? That was great. Then we also, after the goal and reality, that gave us a bit of a sense of the gap. I think you talked about the gap between the two. We then move with the O part of the model into options and going through that. Now, what were you trying to do there? Because there was a couple of moments that were quite strong in that as a coach. So what were you trying to do in the options stage?
The key thing is they need to be your options. If I start giving you options, and you actually asked me for options, if I start giving you options, they're not going to be anywhere near as effective as if you come up with them on your own. So for me, that option phase is about keeping it open, being patient, keeping you thinking until we've got sufficient options to play with.
Right. Brilliant. Yeah, I kind of was at a place fairly quickly, which I imagine many people and coaches would be, where they go, well, one of the reasons I'm talking to you is I've run out of ideas, but actually, have I really? You know, and pushing me to think that one through. And I found that really helpful because we did pretty quickly come up with some, and I even was starting to come up with more afterwards. And then at the end, coming up with the will, the commitment to actually take something forward. And I loved your question about on a scale of 0 to 10, and that side of things, and me coming up with a 9, even pushing it further of whether that was enough. So thank you very much for that as you go through. If you were reflecting on that conversation and what it demonstrates about coaching as a manager, Kaye, is there a key tip you would offer?
What is happening for the person on the other side of the conversation when there's silence? If they are thinking and deeply thinking, then let them think.
Great. That kind of mirrors my one, because I was going to say to you, thank you for the patience you showed, because there were lots of moments where I did want to think and you weren't jumping in, trying to push me, moving on to another question. Silence doesn't always mean you've asked a bad question, does it? It just means that actually I might be thinking it through. I really loved your summarizing as well during it, even though it's a short, relatively simple conversation. You played back to me on a number of occasions what I was saying, which enabled me then to either elaborate, refine, or just go, yeah, that's it. And that's really, really helpful. It knows that you are listening to me, and it builds our coaching bond, I think. Thank you, Kaye. That's been really helpful. I hope anyone watching this has found that a useful demonstration of the model. If you're coming on a program with either myself or Kaye after this video, we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much indeed, everyone.
Thank you.